What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast, your source for real-life application on how to turn your struggles into strengths in all things mind, muscle, and money. I am your host, Josh Levine, and I'm joined here by my longtime friend and my co-host, Travis Hatch. And today, we are going to talk about the bane of our existence, the thing that everybody does, that none of us want to do, that we all have to get better at, procrastination. We all procrastinate. We all find other things to do. We all are not as efficient or effective as we can be. And so we have Eric Twiggs today, author of The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. Eric's done over 28,000 coaching sessions to help people improve their procrastination. And what we talk about today are some of those 12 principles, and part of his book, we dive really deep into the 5 levels of the procrastination prevention pyramid. So stay tuned to learn what those are, and better yet, we also have a giveaway for you. Thank you to Eric, where Eric wants to leave our viewers, our listeners, with the time value calculator. It's something that you can use to calculate what your time is worth to help you outsource and automate things that cost, well, less than that. So a massive way to improve your productivity, a massive way to overcome procrastination. And these 5 foundational principles from this pyramid are something that I have unknowingly been implementing into my own life. And I can tell you, as he was explaining them, all the light bulbs were going off. So this was incredibly valuable for me, and I know it will be for you. So do stay tuned, grab your notebooks, get ready to message Eric to get that calculator. Before we get into it, we want to ask that if you love this episode, I know you will, please give us 5 stars on Apple or follow on Spotify. Share us on your socials. You can find me at Josh Levine Fitness, Travis at Travis Hawks Media. Links are in the show notes, as well as Eric's email that you can use to get your time value calculator. That's it. Get ready to dominate everything you've been procrastinating on as we welcome Eric Twiggs. I, for one, am very excited because I am the self-proclaimed king of procrastination, always have been. And I always thought I was really good at it because I work well when my back is up against the wall, but it also gives me extreme anxiety. So I saw your bio and I was like, all right, this guy's about to change my life. Let's get him on. I need help. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to have you. I thought maybe at first, for us and for the listeners, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you, how you got started in this topic and learn so much about it and what got you to where you are now.
Okay, so for me, it started when I was in college. It was my senior year at Hampton University, and I talk about this in the book. I was having a conversation with my good friend Donnell, and I have to admit that in those days, he and I were a little different. He was all about his purpose, and I was all about the party. And he would always tell me all the time about, hey, you need to get serious, you need to focus on what you really want to do. And I'm like, man, loosen up. We've got plenty of time for all that serious stuff. Are you coming to the frat party with me or not? And so time goes by. He and I don't talk for a while. But then I get a phone call from his mother informing me that he was killed in a car accident.
Man. Wow.
It just sent me a message. It told me that maybe I didn't have the time that I thought to do the things that I wanted to do. And really, that was the birth of my focus on overcoming procrastination and paying attention to how I'm spending my time and being as productive as I can possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll wake you up. And I feel like a lot of times we discuss this on the podcast a lot. A lot of people have to be woken up by something like that. And unfortunately, more often than not, it tends to be something that is a little bit painful to go through. There's a struggle that has to be endured in order to wake up and realize that there's greatness to be had. You just have to learn how to find it and harness it. So I guess with this episode, I would be hopeful that we could encourage people to take matters into their own hands and learn how to overcome procrastination without having to wait for something like that. And so I would love to learn from you, and hopefully our audience will learn as well as Travis and I are learning ourselves. So you had this experience that kind of woke you up. Now, what was it like learning how to overcome procrastination? Because that's not something that doesn't change with like the blink of an eye. That's a skill. It's a tactic. It's a habit. So what made you realize that what you were doing was procrastinating, and what helped you overcome that?
Well, so when that happened, that's when I realized how valuable time was. But then as I got into my career, I got to a point where I was a district manager. I had 17 locations in the automotive service industry and 500 people working for me. And I happened to notice I had a unique perspective, right? So I noticed that, I had people that got good results, and then I had people who seemed to get great results. And with this perspective, I noticed also that in most cases, the good and the great, they knew most of the same things. They had like a similar know-how level. But what I discovered was that the people that got great results, they had this ability to be able to do the things they needed to do, whether they felt like it or not. And that was the separator. So it really, again, this perspective, it really made me look at how I was spending my time, what areas was I procrastinating in, and what did I need to do to be able to consistently get great results. It just forced me to dig deeper.
Okay. And what exactly did you find out you were lacking in or missing during that period of self-realization? Like, what exactly did you find yourself doing when you were procrastinating, and how'd you overcome those things?
Well, so interesting enough, it's like early, like in my college days, it seemed like I lacked clarity. That was the big issue. I wasn't really clear on what it was that I wanted to do. And that's why I teach people to this day that clarity is the starting point of success, right? And so, but once I really gained a clarity, I found that I wasn't procrastinating as much anymore, because I knew I had a mission, I had a focus, I knew what it was I wanted to do, and it allowed me to say no to the things that didn't line up. So for me, that was the big thing. I knew I wanted to get into business, but I really didn't have that passion. See, I thought my goal was to make as much money as possible, but I really wasn't focused on what I could do to make an impact. But once I figured that out, then that's when I was really able to apply the principle successfully.
I love that. I think, and that's the word that I look for a lot of times is passion, because I think that until you find something that you're passionate about, it's hard to want clarity. It's hard to want to develop a structure. It's hard to procrastinate when you love what you do, because usually you're procrastinating with the stuff you would rather do. So if you can find out what you're passionate about, it's like, man, procrastination's actually kind of working, because it's what you're spending all your time doing anyway. So what did you find was your passion, your purpose? I know obviously you're making an impact now through your coaching. Is that what you decided to do, or did it take you a bit of time to get here?
It took me a bit of time to get here. So I got to a point where, when I told you, I had 17 locations, 500 employees. We're having success. We're winning awards. And I remember this day, I'm driving in my car and I had my little BMW that I was doing pretty good. I stop at the stoplight. I'm looking in the rearview mirror. The eyes that were looking back at me were the eyes of someone who hated what he was doing. Yeah. And so I really had to do some soul searching and figure out, what was it that I was really passionate about. It was a painful process, but then what I discovered was I felt the most fulfilled whenever I was speaking to a group. Like, when there was a time in my career where I was a corporate trainer, and I used to think to myself, like, man, people get paid just to be professional speakers. They just go out and talk to different groups. Man, I could do that. I could do this all day, every day. And so that was the pattern. Whenever I was speaking in front of a group, that's when I felt most fulfilled. But I was procrastinating for like 3 years, right? From the time I realized that I should be in the speaking space to the time I actually started moving in that direction. It was like a 3-year window. Mm-hmm. But once I stopped procrastinating on that and started taking those steps, that's really when things started happening.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We've definitely run into that. I mean, even with starting the podcast, we want things to be perfect. And, it gets to a point where you're like, okay, well, am I just procrastinating? I got to just do it, Now, when you realized that you wanted to speak and impact people, I think this is something that I've also found in my career. Once I realized that I wanted to have a positive impact on people's lives, it really helped me focus on exactly what I wanted to do. Did you know that you wanted to help people overcome procrastination, or what was the journey like to get to exactly here?
At first, so what happened was I started with Toastmasters International, and I would do, you had to do different speeches, do different modules. And I had mentors. I participated in the speech competitions, and I had a couple of high level mentors. They just pointed out to me, you seem to talk about time management a lot. You seem to talk about do it now and how important that is. So I started noticing the patterns, and I it seemed like that was my core message, that my results got better when I stayed on message, when I stayed on that message. And what really nailed it for me is there was a time when I just started speaking for pay, and I went to a trade show, and I put together like an audio CD of my presentations. And I had one on how to overcome procrastination, and they flew off the shelves. I mean, people were like, I'm going to get one for my father, my brother. Oh my goodness, where have you been all my life? Man, I need this. And so that really told me that this was my lane to focus on. But it didn't just happen right away where I found out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine it took some time, but of course, like once those things started flying off the shelves, you're like, okay, well, this is good feedback. Obviously, people want this. The funny thing about procrastination, I think a lot of times we're the last people to know that we're doing it. So the fact that you're saying that like everyone wants to grab one for their husband, their father, their brother and sister, their boyfriend, girlfriend, no matter who it is, they're like, everybody in your life, if you're a procrastinator, they probably know it before you do, because you're just doing what you want to do, having fun, thinking like, I thought it was just the way I operated. So what are some of the ways that we identify that procrastination is happening in the first place? Because I think sometimes we can be blind.
Yeah, so you have to really understand what it is, right? So procrastination is when you're putting off those things that you need to be doing. So there's a difference, and I talk about this in the book too. There's a difference between prudence and procrastination. So prudence is when you're legitimately taking time to do research and gather the facts. I think there's a time and season to get your facts together. For example, if led to start your own business, it may not be a good idea just to quit your good government job right away, right? You want to do some research. Mm-hmm. There's a time to gather your facts. But when there's something, when you're not moving at all, and you I talk to people that have been doing research for years and years. Yeah, they've been doing research on writing their book for years and years without taking any action in that direction. So when you're delaying taking any type of action when you should be moving, that's really the definition of procrastination. So you have to watch it. But here's the thing, right? People say to me, oh, I always procrastinate on everything. Not the case, right? The key, it's really about awareness. I've yet to meet someone that procrastinates in every area of their life. So some people, they're on point when it comes to work, but then when they get at home and it comes to household chores and things, they start putting things off, or vice versa. They're on point when it comes to getting their kids' homework done and all that other stuff. But then when they get to work, they're procrastinating. So really pay attention to your procrastination patterns and start to really unpack why it is you procrastinate when you procrastinate.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's a lot easier to identify when there's a clear goal or a timeline set, especially when other people are involved. It's like, well, if you don't do the dishes, they're going to pile up. It's very obvious that you didn't do the dishes. I think that's very different when it comes to a self-driven goal like starting a business. It's like, the dishes aren't proverbially piling up just because you're putting off starting your business. Nothing's really that noticeable. Nothing's really changing. So how important is it to we're talking about setting goals and even tasks and accomplishing them. And it's almost like I recently started using a to-do list, or I have a planner, a daily planner. If I keep pushing the same thing along day to day to day, still haven't done it, I know I'm procrastinating on that thing, even though there's no visible evidence that I haven't done it. So is that a tactic that you use in order to help people identify exactly what they're procrastinating in, or what else can we look at?
Well, I think so. One of the dangers of procrastination is, even if you do that, right, even if you don't get it done, a lot of times there isn't an immediate negative consequence. So you think everything's fine. So you said you were going to do something to get your business started and you don't do it, even if you have it written down. A lot of times there isn't like an immediate negative consequence. Your world didn't really change. It's not like the procrastination police break your door down and come and arrest you, right? So you're thinking everything is fine. But in reality, it's not fine. So the simple thing you can do that works better than having, passing it on from day to day is, can you find an accountability partner? Mm-hmm. Right? That's someone who's going to check in with you and ask you if you did what you said you were going to do. When I was working on the book, I had an accountability partner. I was in the National Speakers Association. This was another fellow member, and we would speak every Sunday. We'd speak Sunday evening. Nicest person you would ever meet in your life. She says, "Eric, did you work on that outline like you said you would last time?" My response was, "No." And I felt terrible. And I'm saying to myself, you know what? I don't want that feeling ever again. So a good thing for people to think about is, can you find someone that's moving in a similar direction? So you use the example of wanting to start a business. Is there someone else that's on a similar path that can help to hold you accountable, and the two of you talk on a regular basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's massively important. I think that's part of the reason that people who hire business coaches, like myself, I have a business coach. I'm surrounded with other people who are doing similar things to me. And we got a group chat going on all the time. We're always talking back and forth. And yeah, those are my accountability buddies. And I also have my check-in with my business coach once a week. Like you said, having an accountability partner or a coach or a mentor, people pay a lot of money for that. You get a friend who, or meet someone in a Facebook group or whatever that'll do it with you for free. You both will benefit from it. I think that's a huge benefit, and will make a big difference. Now, there's starting the business, and there's identifying things that you're procrastinating on that aren't necessarily, like you said, giving you instant negative feedback. And then there's kind of like what sounds like you and I were in school, where, we maybe weren't focused as much on school. We were more about the party, and we were procrastinating there. I've always wondered, I didn't think that I was very, I don't want to say good at school. I just wasn't very interested, and I wasn't very driven. I did very well in school, but it wasn't until I found something that I was truly passionate about that I wanted to learn more. So you have your book, the Discipline of Now, the 12 practical principles to overcome procrastination. If you're willing, I would love to run through it, just a few of those at least. But I'm wondering, is passion one of the principles?
I mentioned passion throughout the book, but clarity is definitely one of the, and I talk about that early in the book, that clarity is the starting point of success. I just think that that's so important, because I definitely think if I was in college and I knew, okay, my mission in life is to do this, and the reason I'm taking this class is to do this. That really makes it. So what happens is, when you don't have clarity, everything sounds like a good idea. Everything's right. Yeah. And what happens is someone says, hey, Eric, you want to chair the PTA committee? Sure, absolutely. Hey, Eric, you want to be the vice president of this? Hey, before you know it, I'm going to meetings every week that have nothing to do with my purpose. Not that these things are bad things to do, but when you're clear, it makes it easier to say no to those things that don't line up to your passion.
Yeah, because it's either going to get you to where you want to be or it's not.
Yes.
So I heavily agree with that. And I think that once you find that clarity, once you find that passion, it usually leads to that clarity, then yeah, it becomes very easy. It's kind of black or white. Is this going to help get me closer to my goal or is it not? And you know what? I even found myself when I was younger doing that in my relationships. It sounded like a good idea. I was like, sure, I'm into it, until I got clear on what I wanted the goal of the relationship to be. And if things weren't heading that way, then I would either change it or, it's you get into a relationship, you're either going to get married or break up. I don't know, So yeah, that clarity is really important, and it applies to so much more than just your work, your business. It applies to your relationships, your friendships, and everything in between. So if we had to talk about, I want to give the listeners some actionable takeaways and keep it relatively concise. If you had to pick 3 or 4 of the most important principles from your book, we're not going to give away the whole book, right? People can buy the book. So if you had to pick 3 or 4 for us to go over today, what would those be? And maybe we can go over them if it's okay with you.
Yeah, so starting in chapter 6 of the book, I get into the procrastination prevention pyramid. And so if you follow this pyramid, it's a triangle pyramid. It's got 5 levels, and at the foundation of the pyramid, and by the way, I created this model based off of 28,000 plus coaching sessions that I've done. But so these are the kind of the 5 foundational things that help you to overcome procrastination. So first is your attitude, and I put the attitude at the foundation of the pyramid because your attitude is at the foundation of your success, right? We have 6,200 plus thoughts per day. Studies show that 80% of those thoughts are negative, right? We're always just thinking about what can go wrong, especially if you're in business. All the worst case scenarios, we have this negativity habit. This can cause us to procrastinate if you're all constantly drilling into the negative. So if you have a bad habit, you want to replace it with a better one. And what I recommend, and I have people do, is to start a win log. Right, that's where you take a 3x5 card, and every day you're tracking your wins. What are the positive things? What are the victories? And the more you start writing your wins down, the more wins you'll have to write down. And you'll find that positivity and the gratitude that's a starting point for you to overcome procrastination, because now your glass is half full instead of being half empty. So that's that. So you have the attitude, and then you have awareness is the next level. And so you want to be aware of your power times. We all have times where our energy spikes or peaks, and we have low energy cycles. Maybe an early morning person like I am. I get up 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, or you might be a night owl. But the key is to schedule your high priority activities during those times of day when you have the most energy. So really try to, for example, for me, I can't, I would try to write blog posts and things like that later in the evening. Doesn't work for me. But if I try that later in the morning when I know my energy cycle is high, I'm going to be less likely to procrastinate. That's critical. A lot of people miss that. So really pay attention. If you look at when you were procrastinating, a lot of times it was in a low energy peak cycle. So you definitely want to be paying attention to that. In the book, I go into more examples of that. But so you have your attitude, your awareness. The next key is animation. And again, you want to be proactive about doing things that support energy, like working out 30 minutes a day, 3 times a week at a bare minimum, making sure you get sleep, and being proactive with recovery. Really making sure that you are taking time to rest and step away from your work. Even if it's during the day, can you step away from your desk and go out and walk and come back, but you want to be proactive with recovery. So those are just some key things from the book. If people apply, they'll find over time that they're procrastinating less.
Man, you are speaking my language. This is what I tell people to do all the time. And it's just because from my coaching, we're just trying to create more efficient, more effective, more optimized human beings. It's like, yeah, if you sleep, if you exercise, you make sure that you're recovering well, you feed your body nutrients that it absorbs well, that digests well, and that it needs, and you think positive thoughts, like you're going to be more productive, more energetic. And apparently this is, I never related it to procrastination, but we'll procrastinate less. That's a cool side effect.
Oh, absolutely. So here's the thing too, is that we're in a society that glorifies work. Oh, you got to grind. Oh yeah, you got to get your grind on. You have to. If you don't wake up at 3 a.m, you're a loser. And what happens is productivity can become a trap, because you get to a point where you learn the time management skills and hacks and all that, so you can do more. So you end up doing more, but the problem is you can burn yourself out if you're not careful. That's why you really have to be proactive when it comes to these recovery methods that I mentioned.
Yeah, more isn't better. This is what we say in coaching. More isn't better. Better is better. More sleep isn't better if it's shitty sleep. You got to sleep better. So, it's like, hey, I slept 10 hours last night, but I woke up 6 times and I, couldn't fall back asleep. 2 of them. It took me an hour. It's not more sleep. You need better sleep. So I think these are massively helpful. So we've got attitude, awareness, animation. Are there two other levels to this pyramid? Yeah, let's get the other 2.
So the other 2, so the next level of the pyramid is automation. And I wish someone would have told me about what I'm about to say before. I wish somebody would have told me this when I was leading 500 people, right? So here's the thing, like everything that needs to be, just because something that needs to be done doesn't mean that you have to do it. Yeah, that's the key thing. Just because something has to be done, it doesn't mean that you have to do it. So automation is about creating systems so that things are getting done without you having to touch it, right? So you want to free up your willpower, because the studies show that willpower is a muscle. And the more decisions you're making, for example, the quality of your decisions tend to go down, and you're actually more likely to procrastinate when your willpower is depleted. So you have to set things up so that you're not touching things and making all these decisions. For example, it could be as simple as with your email. Can you set your folders up? So set your email up so certain emails automatically go to certain folders without you having to touch it.
That one is amazing. Like, talk about a win. We were talking about attitude and like starting a win log. For me, my wins are they're a lot of times they're time focused. If I can win back some of my time, then I want to do that. And man, once I start automating things in my business, my life got so much better. My mental health improved. I did start procrastinating less because I could focus on what I wanted to do more. And now it's to the point where like, I have a list of things that I do like to do and I don't like to do. And if it's on the list of things that I don't like to do, then I'm going to find someone else to do it. Even if it's cleaning my house or mowing the lawn, find the kid like 3 houses down the street, pay him $20 to mow my lawn. It's fine. I don't have to do it. That's an hour of my day. I win back. But you can do that for everything, business and not.
Absolutely. And I try to encourage the entrepreneur, even if they're solopreneurs, I encourage them to look into getting a virtual assistant. I mean, I'm telling you that my virtual assistant has been invaluable in my business. Again, I mean, there's things that she's great at that I'm not. And she just handles it. And it gets done without me having to touch it.
Yep. Even when it comes to like scheduling this podcast, for example, I noticed that you have your assistant that does your scheduling, and Travis and Travis set this up because, he's way more technologically advanced than I am, but we set up through Calendly a way that people could just book calls rather than back and forth and trying to find a time that works. And then, scheduling between all like that took a lot of time. And so it could be, like you said, it could be a virtual assistant. It could be organizing your email folder to operate a certain way. It could be investing in a software like Calendly for us that helps just simplify the process and save you hours of time. And look, you're going to spend, like Travis spent a few hours, I think it was like 5 or 6 hours maybe, like doing research and looking into what we could do in order to save ourselves this time and then implementing it. And now it's done. And granted, yeah, we have to like adjust the new link and whatnot, like we found out at the beginning of the show. But it's a very small amount of work that saves you hours and hours and hours down the line. That's a huge win. So yeah, automation is huge for everybody, regardless of whether or not you're a business owner. I think that's a huge one. And the way you said it, just because it needs to be done doesn't mean you have to do it. I think that, to me, that one hit.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the outcome. It's not about, it's not about what you did. It's about, did it get done?
Exactly. Yeah. And honestly, for most of the people who are business owners, and, I think even people who aren't business owners, run your life like a business, right? Like when you're in a relationship, that's a partnership, right? Like you are working together. You got to make choices that are going to help improve your life. And if they're not going to improve it right now, then they should improve it in the long run. And it doesn't matter how it gets done. It's just got to get done. Man, we had a guy on recently, Ben Zawalski. He's an online fitness coach. And he's like, I hate cooking. Takes a ton of time. I don't cook very well, so I have a chef that cooks for me. And he's like, it's $200 a week. I leave my Tupperware out on Monday. She picks them up. She fills them with delicious food, and then she drops them back off at the end of the day. I'm like, man, that must save you a lot of time. He's like, I don't have to go to the grocery store. I don't have to worry about cooking. I don't have to clean all my pans. He's like, I just have all my food ready to go. I don't care how it got done. I have food in my fridge that's delicious, and I eat it. And I'm like, man, I'm inspired. I got to get a chef now. Start automating parts of your life.
I think what it can help with that, and I work with people on this, is when you start to calculate the value of your time.
Yes.
Right. And so like I have a spreadsheet. As a matter of fact, I mean, if your followers want to email me, I can be happy to send it to them. But yeah. And so basically I have a spreadsheet that will help people to calculate how much their time is worth. And I've had people who literally their time's worth $200 an hour. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, so your time's worth $200 an hour and you're out here cutting your grass.
That's exactly what I did. Except mine was with, the first one I ever did it with was cleaning my house, or it was when I first moved into my new house, it was, working on the house. It was painting rooms and this and that. I'm like, man, if I make this much per hour, it only costs me this much to hire someone to do it. I'm gonna hire someone to do it. I'm gonna spend that hour working on something else that I want to for my business, or doing something that fills me up that like I enjoy doing.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. Yeah. I would love to see that spreadsheet. I'm going to shoot you an email, and if we could send that out to the listeners, I think that'd be great. All right. So we got the 5 levels. We got attitude, awareness, animation, automation. What's the last one? I imagine it's an A.
You guessed it. It's activity, right?
Activity.
And I put activity at the top of the pyramid because you can't get to the top without taking action. Right. Look, I am the biggest fan of the vision boards and goal posters and visualizing and meditating and lighting candles and all of that. But at some point, you have to do something. At some point, you have to take action. But the key is you have to always be aware of that 80-20 principle. And remember that 20% of the things that you're doing are going to get you 80% of your results, right? So the key is if you can focus yourself on those 20% activities, right, that are going to move you forward. And so one of the things that I do to help people with that, I have something I call the Twiggs Top 5. And so for me, I always have a 3x5 card on me at all times. You see, but this is all checked out and all that. So what I do is at the end of every day, I write down my 5 priorities for the following day. And these priorities line up with my goals. They line up with the things that are going to move me forward. So what are 5? They don't have to be big things. They can be following up with a certain person or getting information on that. But so my goal is, I know that I took action when I did those 5 critical priorities for the day. The day's a win for me. And what happens is you start to build momentum. But it's just so important that we focus on action.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think that can be the hardest part. And I think, I was actually experiencing this today. You feel like maybe you've procrastinated a little bit, or maybe you've just put some things aside because there's other parts of your life that you feel needed some attention. And my brain does this thing, and I don't think it's that uncommon, where I've got a few things to do. And it's like they go into a blender and it turns into like a million things. It feels like there's a million things to do. If I just write it down, I'm like, okay, that's 3 things. I need to like bring myself back down to be like, that's 3 things. But before I write it down and before I bring myself back to like earth, essentially, it can be very hard to take action, because it's like, well, what do I do first? And so I think taking action, although it might be the most important part, can also be the hardest part. So how do we, yes, the top 5, I think, is important in order to say, okay, these are the only things. If I do these 5 things, the day is a win. But it can be hard to like actually make that happen. So what are some suggestions that you have to actually get people to take that first step?
Well, again, it goes back to clarity. So if I'm working with someone, we're going to start. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now, right? So I actually have people put themselves 5 years in the future and say, you know what, I am doing better than I ever thought. This is great. So I have them actually picture they're having a conversation with their business partner, and they look at each other and they say, you know what, we did it. Okay, great. What did you do? Right. Mm-hmm. Why are you saying that? What are those 3? Oh, I hit a specific revenue goal. I hired my replacement. Whatever those specific things are. So now we know what you're looking for the next 5 years. And then we break it down further to say, okay, what are the 90-day goals that are going to get us to the 5-year goals? Mm-hmm. So now I know my quarterly goals. And then from there, okay, now I can start thinking about what do I need to be doing every day to hit that 90-day goal. So mm-hmm. It's really, once it's broken down, and again, it may take a coach, so someone outside of yourself, to help you to unpack all of this. But this is a way, because ideally, if you're writing down the things that line up with where you want to go, it's easier. Not easy, but I'm saying easier to start moving on. And I think it's important to write versus just putting it in your phone, because there is studies that show that there's more of an attraction when you write it down. Like your brain picks it up. You're going to remember. It's going to be nagging at you when you write it. You write down something on that paper, you'll be going through your day and it's like nagging at you. Like, oh, I got to do this, man. Let me make sure I get this done.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I think writing is powerful. In fact, when I do gratitudes, I tend to say them out loud and write them while I'm doing them, rather than just typing them in my phone, because there's something different about it. I don't know. It feels better. It feels like it's out there more in the world. Like it just seems more impactful. But yeah, to reverse engineer the success, and I think that is a good way to create more need for action, where you're like, okay, well, now I've got this all laid out. I've got these steps. And man, the note on the 80-20 rule, I think I need to be reminded of that a little bit more often, because, right, like we have these goals. Maybe we have numbers we want to hit. A lot of times there's sales numbers, there's revenue targets that we want to hit, there's subscription targets that we want to hit. And yeah, it really is the small day-to-day things that don't seem like they're going to make a big impact that really do help. And that can even go back to the other levels of the pyramid, like automation. That's a small thing, but it's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to get you a lot closer to where you want to be. So, I think as a business owner, when we're going through our day-to-days and we're doing stuff that it's really the small stuff, it's the 20% stuff. And we gotta be comfortable, and we gotta be confident in the fact that that's what it takes to get us to where we want to be. It just doesn't always feel that way sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
I mean, we think it's got to be the big things. It's got to be, but it could be just those little things. And, I think the key too, also I just try to turn things into a math equation, right? So for example, if you're talking about for an entrepreneur, there's usually some type of conversion rate number, right? So if the number is say 15%, right? That if I reach out, there's a 15% response rate. So I know I need to make say 20 calls or so to get 3 people. So the bottom line is, did I make my 20 calls or not? Right? That's a math equation.
Yep, exactly. And you know what? When you break that down that way, it gives you clarity, like we've been talking about. The clarity is the important piece. And if you can sit down, you can do this on your own. If you have an assistant, you can have your assistant do it. Hey, how many calls did I book? How many showed up? How many sales did I close? If you have those numbers, then you should know, okay, I booked this many calls, I had this many show up, and I closed this many. Now, if I want to close 3 times that, well, cool. I need to know. I know I need to book 3 times as many calls. So how do I book 3 times? Makes it very simple. And I feel like those strategies are things that either I feel like I learned them from my business coach and from my mentors, because like you said, when we were kind of in the beginning of this conversation, like you surround yourself with an accountability partner, those are the people you're going to be learning from. I took my business as far as I could on my own without hiring help. And then I needed to hire help. I was like, this is as far as I know how to go. I needed somebody like yourself to teach me these foundational principles and these tricks and just these theories to actually get myself to the next level. And now it is, like you said, I have more time. I'm winning back more time. I have a better outlook on life, my business. Mentally, I'm in a better place. It's been amazing. And I procrastinate less. It's all coming together. So like the little things you're talking about, without having known it, my own journey from being, in college, all about the party, super procrastinator about a lot of things, didn't have any clarity, didn't know what I wanted to do, to now I'm hearing you talk about this stuff and I'm like, wow, like this is a concise version of how I've gotten to where I am. And now I have even more clarity on what I can do moving forward to become even better at it. So this has been massively helpful for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, these principles make a difference, and like you'll find that once you really start doing this, people will see from the outside. It looks like, man, you got so much to do, and people will ask you, man, do you sleep? Man, how do you get everything done? But you've got this system in place where you're automating, and so you're able to do things, and you're able to spend time with your family, and you're resting, and that's really. That's the sweet spot. That's where you want to get to.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to get there. There's going to be like a period, I think, where everyone goes through a little bit of like a grind where you're kind of doing it all, right? Especially when you're starting a business. There's going to be a period where I think you're kind of got to do it all. You can't afford to hire help, so maybe you can't afford to automate as much as you want to, but you get through that point and you'll get to that sweet spot, and it feels really, really good, man. So this is awesome. I love this. The 5 levels of the procrastination prevention pyramid. I think that's amazing. And this is essentially a quick, it was like a 30-second synopsis of how to defeat procrastination in a very short word. I'm sure the book goes a lot further into it, because is this just one of the principles?
No, that's the second half of the second half of the book. I gave you like a little preview.
Okay.
I mean, and then
Nice.
The book, we go into more details with examples and other things. And so the book is laid out with, it's got activities is stop, read, act, where you actually go through different exercises. But that's just an overview of what to expect.
This is great, man. This is great. This is highly actionable, clear takeaways. Yeah, I mean, even as someone who's come so far in my tendency to procrastinate, I feel like I'm much better than I ever was. I feel like I can still benefit a lot from this. So I really appreciate this, man. This is very clear. And I think that the listeners are going to take a lot away from this as well. So I really do appreciate it, man. We covered a lot today on how to improve our tendency to procrastinate. And I know that one of the things that I think we might be able to leave the listeners with, which you mentioned earlier, is you had a calculator or something?
Yeah, I have a time value calculator that I'll send to your listeners, and it'll help them to calculate how much their time is really worth. And it'll make it easier for you to automate certain things. When you see you're doing, your time is worth this task can be done by somebody, you pay that. And it'll help you to automate your life.
I love that. I think that I appreciate it as well, because I want to take a look at it. I've done this for myself, but I want to look at it again. And I think it's valuable for everybody to be able to do this. So, at the end of every episode, we want to make sure that we can leave the listeners with something that they can do right now to improve in some aspect, in some way of their life. And it sounds like right now, one of the things that you can do is they can reach out to you and they can grab this time calculator. Do you have anything else? Any other closing thoughts on what the listeners could do right now to improve their tendency to procrastinate? Other than, of course, buy the book. All right, I got you. I got you on this one. Buy the book.
Buy the book. The other thing is stay in the habit of making appointments with yourself. Right? Instead of saying, I'm going to write the outline this week for my book, say, I'm going to write the outline on Tuesday at 1:00, and make an appointment with yourself and treat it like it's a VIP that you're making that appointment with. And you think about it, if there's a VIP, you're not going to just not meet with that person. You're not going to stand up with VIP. So why would you stand up yourself? So make a non-negotiable, is getting that habit. And a lot of people I work with tell me that just that one habit has helped them to overcome procrastination, because now they're putting it on the calendar. You just use your Google Calendar and set a reminder. But just that little thing can help you to beat procrastination as well.
That actually is something that I recently started doing a few months back. In the business, you end up doing a lot of things. Sometimes you're working in it. Sometimes you're working on it, want to work on it more than you work in it. But I literally went into my calendar and I blocked off all the days and the times that I was going to do stuff. So I know on Monday at 10:30 in the morning, I write my emails. On Tuesday at 10 in the morning, I write my Instagram copy. On Thursday, I write my Facebook copy. And I go to the gym from 1 to 4 every day, and somewhere within that time. And I put it all in my calendar so that nobody can schedule anything over it. And it is an appointment with myself. And I like the VIP analogy that, we should all be our own most important person. So let's put some things in our schedule. Let's act like it. So everybody take this time right now to make appointments in your schedule, to do the things that you've been putting off that you mean to do. And it's going to be in your schedule. And if you don't do it, you're going to get that appointment reminder from Google in your Google Calendar. And you're going to say, shit, I said I was going to do that. And you're going to do it. So we're going to do that. And we're going to have you all reach out and grab the time calculator from Eric. So Eric, how can, before we let you go, how can people reach you? Where can they find you? And how can they get this calculator? And of course the book.
Yeah, so you can get the book. The book is The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. You can get it on my website. It's also on Amazon. It's The Discipline of Now, 12 Practical Principles to Overcome Procrastination. You can also email me, eric@ericmtwiggs.com, to get the calculator. So it's ERIC@ERICMTWIGGS.com.
Awesome. I will have that. And is it okay if we put that in the show notes for everybody? They can just click on it?
Absolutely. Sure.
All right, y'all. Awesome. So we're going to have that in the show notes for you. So if you want this calculator, this is a great activity. Go down to the show notes, click on Eric's email, send him an email, say you heard him on the Struggle to Strength podcast and you want to grab that. Eric, this has been absolutely phenomenal conversation and very helpful for me. And also, it's like sometimes you go through these things, like I've gone through my journey of improving my tendency to procrastinate. couldn't exactly like create a statement of work from it. But what you've done here during this conversation is you've created the statement of work, and it makes a lot of sense to me. And now I know I have some action items that I'm going to take away from this. So I hope the listeners do as well. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing them. And to everybody who's tuned in to this next episode of the Struggle to Strength podcast, thank you all, and we will see you all next week.